So NFP week price played out exactly as we had analyzed in the weekly outlook video. So it was a very beautiful week, and these are some of the trades that I was able to take. That is week 23, and we can just open one and see exactly what you have. You can see in your journal, this is where you record your trade. You also get to do your analysis. Personally, for me, I like to really document my pre-analysis and post-analysis, and that is why you see I have this part here with all screenshots, everything about the trade outcome, and also there's an after trading report here, which is really good for your psychology because you can record what went wrong, the lessons you can learn from that specific trade, and also what went well. So if you want this trade journal, I'll put a link in the description box below. I'll also pin it in the comment section. So you can see I was able to share some of those trades in my trading group. I normally do analysis every single day. I share my key levels, what I'm watching, and we also get to do a live analysis during London session. So if you want to join this trading group, I'll also leave a link in the description box below. So now let's do the analysis for this coming week. So we're going to start with DXY. So DXY is dollar index, and you know very well we have been bullish and we are bullish for dollar index. And I want to tell you why, because if you look at the monthly time frame, you can clearly see 2025 we had all this bearish drop. Then we've had all this consolidation. So at this point, our draw of liquidity is this internal range liquidity, which is a monthly fair value gap. So if this market is still bearish, if dollar is still weak, we first of all want to see price actually retrace to a premium before it sells, if it's going to continue selling or whichever. So now let's look at the weekly time frame, and you can clearly see, of course, we had this bullish momentum, then this was a retracement. Last week we looked at this, and we looked at this fair value gap. Price had already tagged, and we wanted to see a bullish reaction from it, and that is exactly what we got last week. And in the process of price giving us this bullish reaction the week that just ended, you can see we have an inversion fair value gap. And if you go back to my weekly outlook 2-3 weeks ago, you'll see I told you guys, the moment we get a candle body closure above here, that is a confirmation that this market is bullish, and at no point should you sell dollar. Sell dollar at your own risk. This is the proper final confirmation, although we already had our confirmations even before this. But now, this was the only PDRA that was standing on a way of a bullish dollar, and because price has actually inverted it so beautifully, as you can see, we want to just see now dollar bullish going forward. So let's see the daily time frame, and you can clearly see we had again this gap here. This something I told you, the moment you invert it, that's it. This market should not be bearish anymore. You have no reason at all to sell dollar. You can see price inverted this gap right here. We want to see price retrace here before we see that bullish momentum, and it can even go deeper to the weekly gap there, to the weekly inversion fair value gap, which is in here, or it can just be within, as long as the point is this is the key level right here. So we want to see price get there before we see bullish momentum. So let's look at USDCHF. So USDCHF and dollar index are positively correlated. So if you want to see a bullish dollar, we also want to see a bullish USDCHF, and we will start our analysis from the weekly time frame. So if you look at the weekly time frame, you can see we had this retracement, price tagged this volume imbalance. We looked at this. I told you guys the moment price tags this, we want to see a bullish reaction from it, and that is exactly what we got last week, all this bullish momentum. So that's good. We want to see more bullish moves for next week. So let's look at the daily time frame, and you can clearly see we have this order block here. We also had this inversion fair value gap here, which actually got tagged by price, and that's what we have. So far going forward, we just want to see a retracement. Price can retrace to this order block, and we see bullish momentum, or it can go deeper. We see a deeper retracement to, this is an order block still here. This is still an order block before we continue going bullish. But at the end of the day, of course, you're going to look at the dollar. The moment dollar price gets to the target, anticipate USDCHF, we get a reaction from that point. So let's look at EURUSD. So EURUSD and dollar are negatively correlated. If you want to see a bullish dollar, you want to see a bearish EURUSD. And again, if you do analysis, we've been doing this for a long time now, guys, and you know very well our draw of liquidity for EURUSD is this monthly fair value gap that we have right here. So you can see price made a high, consolidation, retracement to this fair value gap here so beautifully there. price got support and we've had all this bullish momentum. So at this point, you can see the market has done what? We have made a new higher high. At this point, the market is at a premium. If you want to continue buying Euro USD, you don't want to buy it up here. Buying it up here is really expensive. The best place to buy is where is from a discount level. And right now, if you look at it on the monthly time frame, this monthly fair value gap is our discount level. So this right here is our draw of liquidity for price. We want to see Euro USD sell until we finally get to this monthly fair value gap. So let's look at the weekly time frame. So beautiful. You can see price retraced, tagged this fair value gap, which we already analyzed it. We wanted to see price actually do what? Get a reaction from here. And you can see so beautiful. We had all this bearish momentum. Price is actually this is a volume imbalance, which has been inverted. So this is what we have so far. And what we want to see going forward, we can get a retracement before we see more bearish momentum. Remember, our final draw of liquidity is where? The monthly fair value gap. So let's look at the daily time frame, and clearly you can see we have this inversion fair value gap right here, which is also inside the inverted volume imbalance. And there's an order block here. That's what I see. Still, this is also an inversion, but this inversion fair value gap, I think it has already been used by price here, so we're not even looking at that. So I'm looking at this inversion fair value gap. I want to see price actually retrace, target, and then we see that bearish momentum. And if we actually take our fib tool and see, this is a dealing range already because the market has made a lower low. If we take our fib from that high to this low, you can see 50% of this range is where we have this order block, and the inversion fair value gap is here. So inversion fair value gap is below the 50% of the range, but it's close to 50% of the range. So if price uses this to push price lower, I'll still appreciate that, because you see we cannot really force the market to go all the way to 50% of the range. And I'm sure most of you have realized that it's not always guaranteed that the market will go to 50% of the range. So if we use bodies, you can see already 50% of the range is where we have that inversion fair value gap, really close to it. So if you want to learn how I'm able to do what I do and doing analysis from the higher time frame all the way to the lower time frame, entries for swing trade, intra-trade position using ICT SMC concept, I'll put a link in the description box below, because we have live online classes starting June 12th. So check the link, sign up, and register for the next class. So let's look at GBPUSD, and we'll start with the weekly time frame. So GBPUSD and EURUSD are positively correlated, and they are both negatively correlated with the dollar. And for GBPUSD, you can see we had this bearish momentum, price retraced to the weekly fair value gap, and so beautifully we had all this drop just as we had anticipated, as we had analyzed to the T. So let's look at the daily time frame, and so far you can see we just have this order block right here. So that's the only PDRA I can see on this daily time frame. So we just want to see a retracement, and the market should continue going lower. So either we can have a retracement whichever levels. It can retrace all the way to this order block. That is still fine. If it fails to get to the order block, that is still okay. So let's look at gold, and gold, you can see we've been doing this analysis and price has been playing out exactly as we've been doing the analysis, which is good. Now you can see on the weekly, the only PDRA we have is this order block, and of course we want to see a bearish gold. The first draw of liquidity is what? We want to see price get to the sell side liquidity right here. So let's look at the daily time frame. You can see the only PDRA we have is this order block right here, and the weekly order block is right here. So we want to see price retrace. It can get to this. It would be nice if we get the retracement to this daily order block before we get that bearish continuation move. So let's look at BTCUSD. So BTCUSD, I introduced it last week in our weekly outlook. And as you can see, it played exactly as we had analyzed, which is really nice. So now we can see so far price actually has closed below this low here. I consider all this an order block, or you can say change instead of delivery. So on the weekly time frame, I'm looking at this level. It would be nice if we can get a retracement to this level before we see that bearish momentum. Remember, the first draw of liquidity for BTCUSD is this. We're looking at all these sell side liquidities as potential place that the market will get to. So let's look at the daily time frame, and you can see we have the weekly order block level is right here, and you can see on the daily we also have a fair value gap there. So I'm watching this as the first level that I want to see price actually we get a rejection from here. It would be nice if we get a retracement tag here and then continue going lower. And I'm not ruling out price retracing all the way to this side here. But again, because this is the first fair value gap that we have, or in the retracement leg, this should be the first level that we watch. If this gets inverted, then that's when I can shift my attention to this fair value gap here. So that is all I prepared for this weekly outlook video. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you have not subscribed, subscribe to this channel. I'll see you in the next one.